This next story you will only see on News Channel 5. The Scripps National Investigative Team looks at how the Boy Scouts are protecting children today. Over the last 2 days, we revealed systematic failures within the Boy Scouts that led to sex abuse over 2 decades.
And today we uncovered challenges the Boy Scouts still face in keeping Scouts safe. Scripps National Investigative Correspondent Jim Osman is following the trail of betrayal.
The Boy Scouts of America say times have changed.
We have a very good system of protecting kids.
And just like the Catholic Church and the Penn State abuse scandals, the Scripps National Investigative Team has shown how the Boy Scouts of America operated under institutional secrecy, creating a culture of concealment that put thousands of scouts at risk between 1970 and 1991. So what about today? This former scout leader says there are still problems.
It is a great program, except that protecting the boys, they don't do.
I believe when my grandson joined scouting, he's safer than any other place he could be.
And now, after all that we've uncovered, there are calls for lawmakers to intervene.
It's time for Congress to investigate.
Obviously, a pretty old camp.
Tom Stewart was once a Boy Scout leader and led young men, including his sons, on camping trips here.
I became increasingly more aware that, the Boy Scouts still were not protecting boys the way they should.
But Tom Stewart still expected stringent screening when he joined as a scout leader in 2001.
They didn't do a background check on me.
In fact, BSA didn't require mandatory background checks until 2008. But listen to Bob Mazuka in this statement from 2010, Boy Scouts of America CEO, who retired in August.
We do a criminal background check on every applicant to be an adult leader.
But there are still questions about the quality of the Boy Scouts background checks. Brian Liska was convicted for having sex with a 14-year-old girl. But in 2011, he was a Boy Scout leader and was arrested at a scout meeting at a school because it violated the conditions of being a registered sex offender in Illinois. The issue of youth protection is vitally important to fathers like Tom.
Sadly, I was abused here.
Because the Seattle area camp where he once led the Boy Scouts is the same camp where a Boy Scout leader molested him when he was a boy, molesting him and his brother.
We were, abused hundreds of times. We were raped and sodomized.
After all he went through as a kid, he still believed in scouting. But when Tom saw gaps in youth protection as a scout leader, he quit in 2003. Current Boy Scouts of America President Wayne Perry says the Scouts have other guidelines to keep boys safe.
We emphasize too deep. I see it all the time. I see the commitment people have.
Too deep means 2 adults at all times supervising Scouts, a policy since 1987. But in 13 recent criminal court cases, the Scripps National Investigative Team found incidents where scout leaders molested children at scouting events while they were alone. Like William Huffling, a former suburban Detroit scout leader who in 2009 gave a Boy Scout liquor and molested him in a tent. The two were alone. Or take Scott Allen Herrick, who in 2010 provided alcohol to Boy Scouts, showed them pornographic videos, and hosted them for overnights alone. 4 authorities caught him with 100,000 images of child porn at a Twin Lake, Michigan Boy Scout camp. He's now in prison.
We have trained millions of people in what is youth protection.
The Boy Scouts of America President Wayne Perry says they do put boys first.
Today, I think we do a very good job. Around the world, people asked us to use our youth protection system.
In an exclusive interview with the Scripps National Investigative Team, the president of the Boy Scouts now says he will turn over to police the names of scouting officials who may not have done the right thing when it comes to reporting. But who will hold the Boy Scouts of America organization accountable? Just recently, victim advocates called for a congressional audit. That's what leads us to Washington. Congress has the power to investigate the Boy Scouts, according to author Patrick Boyle, who wrote the book Scouts Honor about molesters in the Boy Scouts.
Congress certainly has it within its authority to call them forward and actually get some answers that probably we're not getting.
After all, Congress approved the federal charter that created the Boy Scouts in 1916. And Congress gives the Boy Scouts perks to help run the organization. That was pointed out in a lawsuit filed against the Scouts by Seattle attorney Tim Kosnoff.
There's probably 25 different code sections where some member of Congress inserted some sort of giveaway.
Congress requires the Agriculture Secretary to give grants to the Boy Scouts and the Defense Secretary to loan property for the Boy Scouts Jamboree.
This does come at the expense of the American taxpayer.
The Boy Scouts of America have been sued more than 100 times since the 1980s regarding sexual abuse cases. At least that many are still pending. The Scripps National Investigative Team will continue on television, in print, and online to follow the trail of betrayal. I'm Scripps National Investigative Correspondent Jim Osman.